Hey, what's going on, guys? It's finally time to make some Diablo 4 videos now that the beta is out. In this video, I wanted to show you the build that I leveled up to 25 with, and it's a full cold Sorcerer. Now, nothing in the beta is going to be extremely difficult here, but this build pretty much just face tanked everything in the game. You've got tons of crowd control, you're freezing constantly, and chilling everything as well. You've got barriers to protect your life. Single target damage is good, area of effect is good. It doesn't really have much of a flaw here. Now, again, it is only at the level 25, so of course, once the game's actually out, who knows if a build like this is going to be viable or not. But for just what we're playing right now, it's very strong. So our main ability is going to be Ice Shards. So every time you cast this, it's going to launch 5 of these, and they deal 25% increased damage to frozen enemies. So you kind of shoot them in a line in front of you. But you also, with modifiers to the Skilltree, which we'll go over here in just a minute, they have a 15% chance to ricochet to another enemy. They always ricochet off of frozen enemies. And then while you have a barrier active, Ice Shards treat enemies as if they were frozen. And again, we're going to have this set up to have barriers up very consistently. Let's take a look at the Skilltree and the abilities. Now, I don't have any points spent. We're going to go through this and apply points just like you would if you were playing a brand new character. So you have to put 2 points into the first cluster to get down to the second. So we're going to put a point into Frostbolt and then Enhanced Frostbolt. This ability is going to be kind of a filler when we're either out of mana or other abilities are on cooldown. So then we're going to go into Ice Shards, 1 point there, and then 1 point into Enhanced Ice Shards. So from there, I would say put 1 more point into Ice Shards and then grab 1 point into Glinting Frostbolt. You don't have to do this, but especially early on, it just makes it much easier to get mana back. So now that we have the defensive cluster open, we're going to go into Frost Nova. It's just an amazing crowd control, freezes enemies for 2 seconds, and is going to synergize very well with some other things that we're doing in the build. Then here I like to also grab Teleport. It's going to give us movement. It's going to give us a way to get out of trouble. You can put more points into it potentially, but I'd like to only just put 1 point into it. More points is going to reduce the cooldown. And then from there, I like to go ahead and go back and put some more points into Ice Shards. So max it out. Put 1 point into Ice Armor. So Ice Armor is an amazing defensive ability. It forms a barrier around you for 6 seconds, absorbing 30% of your base life. And then while Ice Armor is active, 10% of your damage dealt is added to its barrier. It's also going to synergize very well with some of the other barrier things we're going to be doing in the build. Just 1 point into that. Then we're coming down to these passives right here. So we're going to put 1 point into Align the Elements. You gain 5% damage reduction against elites for each second you haven't taken damage from one, up to 50%. It's a pretty solid node. I would imagine with more points, we'll probably even put more than 1 point into this. But we're mainly just putting a point in there so we can get to protection. Using a cooldown grants 10% of your maximum life as a barrier for 5 seconds. We're going to max this out. And we already have 3 cooldown abilities. Frost Nova, Teleport, and Ice Armor. So you can kind of cycle through these and pretty much make sure you have a barrier up the majority of the time. So now that we have a consistent way to get barriers between protection and Ice Armor, we're going to go back up here and grab Greater Ice Shards. So this is, while you have a barrier active, casts of Ice Shards treat enemies as if they were frozen. Then I'm going to go down to Frost Nova. So we haven't got any of the tree for Frost Nova yet. We're going to grab Enhanced Frost Nova. It's going to potentially reduce the cooldown. And then we're also going to go into Mystical Frost Nova. This is going to make enemies vulnerable for 4 seconds and 8 seconds against bosses. Then from there, we're looking at Icy Veil, a little bit more barrier synergy. It's going to increase the duration of our barriers. We're going to grab all 3 points in that. So then we have 1 more point we need to spend before we can get down to the ultimate cluster. You could probably really put this just about anywhere. I normally just put it into Cold Front. We're going to apply more chill while we have an active barrier. So next we're going to grab Deep Freeze as our ultimate. So you encase yourself in ice, you become immune for 4 seconds, continually dealing damage and chilling enemies, and then when it expires, you deal a burst of damage. So you could absolutely go into the tree of Deep Freeze if you wanted to. I like to go ahead and just put 2 points though into Permafrost. Frost skills deal 5% increased damage to elites, 2 points into it, 10% increased damage. Next up, let's talk about the Sorcerer class ability, the Enchantment system. You're going to unlock this at level 15. At level 15, a quest will show up in your quest log automatically. Go do that quest chain, it's very easy, doesn't take very long to do, and you'll unlock the Enchantment system. So the way this works is you have 2 enchantment slots. You get one at 15 and one at 30. Obviously the level 31 we are not going to have in the beta, but assign a skill to this enchantment slot to receive passive benefits. And each ability has a different enchantment effect that you're going to get by socketing it into that slot. So the one that we're going to go for is Ice Shards. So the enchantment effect, Ice Shards automatically conjure and fly towards frozen enemies. This is going to have amazing synergy with Frost Nova. Frost Nova is an area of effect freeze, kind of on-demand freeze. So we're able to teleport into a group and say there's 10 enemies there. You Frost Nova, freeze everything, and then Ice is going to fly at all the enemies and take them out. Really, really nice area of effect clear. So all you have to do is just click the ability and drag it down into the enchantment. Alright, next up, let's talk about the gear. Now, this is really nothing special. I mean, I'm wearing mostly rares still. I do have a few legendaries, but most of them really aren't all that powerful. You could definitely get this min-maxed much more than this, even within the beta, if you really wanted to, but it's not really necessary to do. The one thing that I would 100% try to get is this. Ice Shards pierce 7 times, dealing 14% less damage per subsequent enemy hit. Now, this is a legendary effect that I dropped. I extracted that ability and then put it on this necklace. And I'll try to get a video out on how all that system works as well. But there's another way that you can get this without having to try to rely on RNG to get a drop. So if you look at your map here, down in the bottom right, you've got the Dead Man's Dredge dungeon. Now, if you complete this dungeon, you actually get that legendary effect added to your codex. And as you can see, kind of like some other ones I haven't done yet. So Lost Archives, this is kind of what I'm talking about. This aspect of the Protector, that is a legendary effect. When this dungeon gets completed, that legendary effect will get added to my codex, and then I will be able to imprint that legendary effect onto rares from then on out. Now, the one thing about this is anything in your codex will always imprint the lowest potential rolls for that legendary effect, whereas you can drop a legendary that will have higher rolls than that. And a good example of this is actually this specific legendary. So let me show you here real quick. If you go over to the occultist here, so you can tell that this is a dropped one because it's up to 7 times. And if you look here, if I were to put this in and go to the Codex of Power and try to put the same legendary effect on there, it would be Ice Shards pierce 3 times, dealing 25% less damage per subsequent enemy hit. So it's adding basically the lowest baseline roll this legendary effect can potentially have. Now, these legendary effects do get increased by 50% on amulets and 100% on two-handed weapons. And then the rest of the gear is really nothing special. Rare rings, rare weapon. This is just my highest damage weapon that I have at the moment. I could definitely go and imprint a legendary power onto that if I really wanted to. Rares. A decent chest piece to give me some life per second. And then this is actually a pretty solid helmet for this build. Whenever you damage an elite, you get a barrier absorbing damage for 10 seconds, which of course synergizes with this build pretty well. But again, nothing insanely powerful. You could really put this together with just rares, no legendary effects, and have no problem. All right, anyways, guys, that's going to about wrap it up. I think I've rambled on long enough. I wanted this to be a shorter video, Thank you guys for watching. I'm planning on putting out a few more build videos. I figure a lot of you guys may not be playing this first weekend. You may be waiting for the actual open beta next weekend. And so I'm going to get some Sorcerer builds out that you can kind of start with going into that open beta. So anyways, thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see you next time.